Welcome back to Relationships at Work, your guide to building workplace connections and avoiding those leadership blind spots. I'm your host, Russell Lawlicker, a communications and leadership expert with a couple of decades of experience in both of those areas, and a whole heap of curiosity on how we can make the workplace better. If you're a leader trying to understand and improve your impact on work culture and the employee experience, well, I have to tell you, you're in the right place. This mini episode, it's Thursday, so that's when we release them. They're just quick and valuable bits of information to shift our thinking for the week ahead. They're all inspired by our Raw Note newsletter, which I always recommend you go to our website to check out and sign up to. That is relationshipsatworkshow.com or relationshipsatwork.ca. But let's not get lost there. Let's focus on what we have ahead of us. Our topic today, the Leadership X-ray. See and understand to rebuild your work culture. What kind of culture do we want? It's a great question. It's a great question to ask an organization, a team, and it's a great opportunity to allow us to explore possibilities, set goals, reflect on the kind of environment that will help us move forward in the organization, the branch, the division, our team. There's just a huge piece of information that we don't always have. Do we know the organizational culture we have now? I ask this because so many leaders focus on a future state vision without really understanding the world they live in. Unfortunately, trying to build a future state culture, most often than not, is a wasted effort if we don't understand how amazing or horrible our current culture is. How do we know we're even prepared or capable of achieving this future state? If we have the right people, the right training, the right mindset, the right leadership. I remember going to a small leadership conference many years ago where they talked about the transition of political power in Australia. The prime minister of the day was someone who liked to have control, absolute control. They wanted to make all the decisions. So they surrounded themselves with people that diligently executed his vision. Basically, yes men and yes women who were hired to focus on and deliver what the prime minister wanted. Now, when a new prime minister was elected, they were a far different leader. They wanted new ideas, they wanted innovative thinking, and they wanted shared visions for the future from the staff. They didn't want all the ideas to come from them. This is a lot different than the previous regime. The problem was the organization that he had inherited wasn't that organization. That wasn't what they were hired to do. They were people that executed. End of list. They didn't innovate or think strategically because their former boss didn't hire them for that. It wasn't their skill set or their mindset to do anything but execute on his vision. So this new leader got exceedingly frustrated and blamed the organization for failing to do what he wanted them to do. He talked of how broken this organization was and that he couldn't get anything done. He didn't know his culture. He had a vision of the culture he wanted and had no concept of the organization he was trying to build that culture from. We can't arrogantly assume we're in a place to create something new. We can't. And FYI, I'll be talking about arrogant assumption in a later episode. So how do we know where our culture currently sits? Well, this is going to come as no surprise. Employee surveys and feedback tools is probably the first place to start. It's one of the most direct ways to assess the work culture. Employee surveys that cover things like job satisfaction, work-life balance, management effectiveness, feelings of inclusiveness, respect, how the leadership is or is not, make sure to also include open-ended questions. Regular feedback like suggestion boxes or regular one-on-one meetings, they also can provide pretty great insights. Another thing is to just observe and pay attention and to participate in daily activities. Just watch. Don't hide in our offices. Just actively observe and participate in the activities that our teams go through every day. That includes attending meetings or participating in after work or less formal get-togethers and watching the work environment during different times of the day. Pay attention. Look for how employees interact with each other, how they approach their work, how they interact with people that report to them or that they report to, how policies and practices are actually implemented. we're getting to see the culture up close, and it's a great opportunity to note that gap that we talk so much about on the podcast, the discrepancies between what we say our values are and the actual behavior. And last is, and it may come to this, you could hire a third party for a cultural audit. Getting an outside group to come in and do an assessment can actually help with some of that objectivity, especially if there's any issues with psychological safety. It's still those surveys, interviews, and observations I mentioned, but with less baggage. They can also provide a bigger picture. They can benchmark the organization's culture against industry standards, perhaps, or better practices that they've seen somewhere else. They provide a more unbiased view of where the culture stands and where there might be room for improvement. It's a gap analysis that we can't do being a part of the culture ourselves. So those are just three things we can think about to really understand where we are, because in the end, it's about knowing where you are to get where you want. And if we truly want to drive our organization to a new corporate culture destination, we really have to understand the kind of car we're driving, who's in the car and who's not, and if we have enough gas to get there. Yep, the metaphor works. And that'll do it. That is another mini episode of Relationships at Work, your guide to building workplace connections and avoiding leadership blind spots. My name is Russell Lolliker. Always a pleasure hanging out with you, sharing some of my thoughts, hopefully shifting some mindsets along the way to help us improve ourselves as leaders, because it's always a learning exercise. I know, I'm learning every day myself. All right, take care of yourself. Bye.